Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes for those keeping count. This is episode 380. And my next guest, we are heading up to the coldness of Michigan. Yes, it's cold. Where we're going to talk about leaders, and not the BS kind of leaders that you're probably used to, but the leaders who must lead. I know it's hard to imagine leaders who lead, but my next guest, Dan McPherson, who is a calm and clarity coach, is going to help guide us through why leaders must be who they need to be to guide audiences or their employees to a better place. So, welcome, Dan, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm glad to be here, man. Leadership is such an important thing, and so often, I think, put into crazy frameworks and a lot of bluster in the world and a lot of shielding. But I'm
Yeah,
always
and
glad to talk about it.
it's not an intro I normally throw out there because people are like, "Well, Rob, aren't you just BSing now?" It's crazy because I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years, but before that, I had a series of jobs that I hated. Temp jobs, warehouse jobs, and the leaders all sucked. I'm going to tell you, I had one great leader. My very first job, I worked in a grocery store. The owner of the company, Mr. John Herr, he was brilliant. He took the time. He had the patience. He asked questions. He respected you. Leaders today are the complete opposite of Mr. John Herr,
Yeah.
and they will sit on their ass all day long and make you do double time. I don't like that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either. There's so much of what you describe. And I had a 30-year corporate career and I can count on three fingers the number of people I would say were great leaders out of that. And so I'm right there with you. So many people that would either be just about they would be about management, but not
Mhm.
leadership, right? Like in my mind, management is about tasks, leadership is about people. You still gotta get the task done. The same thing gets there, but how you get there makes a huge difference. So you'd have that group, or you'd have the group that would say, "Oh, I'm all about the people," while pointing instead of scooping anything,
Mhm.
or leading from behind their desk of, "Yeah, you go figure it out," not delegating, but shoving it off. All that stuff drove me nuts. And I think it's a lot of where what's the quote that people don't leave companies, they leave people.
Mhm.
Pretty much every place I left the people. There were several of the companies I liked well enough, but I was not going to work for the people anymore.
Well, and nowadays they lead with these phones. They'll text you from home to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, look, how am I supposed to work if you keep texting me? You know.
Well, that and how you doing is a lot. I think there's a space where it's similar to when you meet somebody in person and you go, "Hey, how are you?" And you're just waiting for the answer of good so you can move on. Like it wasn't even a real question, right? That I think that in relationships, we all want two things. In whether it's a conversation, relationship, whatever, we all want connection and movement.
Mhm.
Right. And connection, it to me is real. It's are you seen? Are you heard? Are you valued? Does your voice matter? All of those things. And then movement is, are we actually going somewhere towards the direction that I want to go? And if more people who are leaders would just focus on those two, like it's like the quickest checklist you're gonna find. Did I connect with them for real? Is there some movement that came out of it? They'd be a lot better off.
Yeah, I've heard stories in the corporate world that Steve Jobs was a horrible leader.
Yeah.
He ruled with an iron fist. He yelled at people, demeaned them. And you look at the empire that he created and you're thinking, wow, he must have been a great leader. No, he wasn't, you know. Um,
He was a great
but
strategist,
yeah,
leader, not so much.
so the replacement, and I can't think of who runs Apple now.
Oh,
I
I'm
should,
blanking on it. I should too.
you
So
know.
now it's going to drive me a little nuts,
But they
but
say
yes.
he's a complete opposite of Steve. He
Yeah.
he he really cares about the people. And so there's always a shift. I think when the the original leader leaves and
Yeah,
another one takes over, sometimes there's a feeling of change.
right.
They know that hey, this has got to be better, you know. It not always is, but when you had a person of Steve's caliber, sometimes you just don't want that to continue.
No, and the challenge is that you have different skill sets in there, right? Because he was a strategist, he was a visionary, he could force things forward. I did that. I had a team back when I was working for Brookstone retail stores and malls, and when I took over the team, we were ranked basically dead last out of all the districts.
Hmm.
And I thought I was the coolest thing on the world because I had all the ego in the world. Now, since then, I've learned ego only covers insecurity. So basically, it just meant I was the most insecure person in the whole world. But I was told by my boss, do whatever you have to do to get this district winning. And somewhere in my head, that fused of do whatever you have to do. Right. So now I'm the slave driver. I'm the guy. I cared about people in my heart,
Hmm.
but how it came out was ego, forcefulness, pushing, harsh, like let's go, driving. And you can, what I learned in that is you can create performance for a period of time,
Hmm.
and then there's a wall.
Yeah.
And that cliff that's on the other side of the wall is hard, deep, and has a lot of rocks at the bottom. And so what I had unintentionally done is I had changed jobs about every year and a half. And I said, oh, it's because I get uncomfortable. It's because I need new challenges. But really, I was leaving before the cliff and I just didn't know it. And that's the first time somebody confronted me and said, Dan, how you're doing is actually creating a problem.
Hmm.
And I think Steve Jobs did a little bit of that, right? There's so much you can drive, but the cliff was coming.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you then you had then they made the switch. And problem is when you make the switch at that hard point, you usually go to the other side of the spectrum.
Right. Yeah. And I just remembered who it was. It's Tim Cook.
Oh,
And
thank you. I feel better
I was
just
like,
knowing that
the
now.
simplest
Like,
names I always mess up. But
right?
Tim's been in the Apple CEO, I think, since 2011, so going on 15
Yeah.
years. And but yeah, sometimes the culture needs to shift.
Hmm.
And you look at some of the other leaders, Elon Musk. Yes, he's very much like Steve Jobs. Again, a visionary, very strategic. He already has the solution in his head before he's telling the people how to do it.
Right.
And and I get that way too. I have an idea. I know what the idea is going to look like. I know how it's going to play out. I know, but sometimes it's hard for me to convey that to somebody else who doesn't see that vision the way I do.
Yeah, I think there's another piece there too, though, and that is that look, I'm a bright guy. I was quick before all my head injuries. I was probably a lot quicker. But one of the things is I would do exactly what you described. I'd walk in and I'd be like, I know. What I've learned since then is no matter how many of the dots I can see connecting, that we're always stronger as a team than we are as individuals. That if I'm
Mhm.
surrounded by or around people who have different backgrounds and they have different ideas, but we have a similar goal, if I pause and ask questions, I think curiosity is the number one skill in the world. Ask more and better questions. That if I do that, I'll end up with something stronger than what I thought, even if it's only slightly amplified. But the team will also come along with. And it took me a long time to learn to do that step
Mhm.
rather than just trying to be like, here's what we're doing.
Now, you mentioned head injury. I mean, tell me more about that.
Yeah, I've had 5 major concussions over
Wow.
time.
One wasn't enough. You had to go for
No, I
five.
was like, oh, you know what? That was interesting. What other ways can I get them? I've gotten one during martial arts because of a silly thing. I got one. All right, so I've got a couple of crazy ones. The craziest one is the bowling ball I threw into my own head and almost died. But
I
the
shouldn't laugh.
no, I'm laughing that now, then a little less so. But like The one that I think of is the because it feels like it even fits right into this leadership discussion. I'm talking to my team in the back hallway of Detroit Metro Airport. I worked in the airport. We're doing retail for 5 years, right? And I'm talking to them, and I was a little irritated. So I turned around to them and I said, "You guys make me want to bang my head into a wall." And I turned back around toward the cement cinder block wall that I was like, I was going to pretend to bang my head into the wall. And I did not pretend, as it turns out. You hear this big crack, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine." They walk away. I slumped to the ground, gave
Wow.
myself a concussion. Yeah, that was leadership for you right there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I've had enough of those injuries when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? I've had a lot of nutty injuries. They have they've led to some interesting transformations for me. Like the head injuries, which caused my brain to slow down in some ways, are part of, I think that along with being restricted after having 4 heart attacks in 1 year, I got to a spot where I realized that I needed to slow down, but some different things were highlighted. So my ability to see other people, my ability to live into other people and to live my core value of people matter most showed up differently, even if my brain was not quite as sharp as it was before.
Hmm. I've always experienced those slowdowns too. Sometimes I'm creating so much content. I get absorbed into whatever I'm doing.
Right.
And the next morning I'll wake up with this migraine that's so bad. And it's worse than, I haven't been drinking in years, but I remember, waking up after a binge drinking and my head was ready to explode. Well, that's
Right.
these migraines come on sometimes like that, and
Oof.
it forces you to slow down. And I think
Yeah,
our bodies do that to us, especially as
I agree.
entrepreneurs. We get these moments in time where the body's like, I've had enough of this crap. Slow the hell down, or I'm going to slow you down.
Yep.
And it finds ways for us to slow down, to appreciate what we're doing, to look at it and say, okay, yeah, really, that's not working. Why did I even create that?
I when I hear that, I think of that as our body yelling at us. And one of the lessons that I've finally started to learn, or really I guess one of the goals that I have is to learn how to hear the whispers before they become yells.
Hmm.
Right. There's a trio of questions that I use when I'm struggling, that I use with my clients when they're struggling. And the first one is, what am I meant to understand from this situation? Basically, it's saying whatever pattern I'm seeing, what am I meant to understand from it? Well, you don't ask that until you're aware of the pattern. I'm
Hmm.
working really hard to see the pattern when it's a whisper, because when it's a yell, the heart attacks, whatever it might be, like that sucks. Like that is well past when I would like to be aware of a pattern now.
Yeah, and sometimes, we look at patterns the wrong way,
Hmm.
and I've looked at things and gone, I know I can fix this. And then I'm looking at the things and going, yeah. And then I'm like, oh shit, I just wasted 16 hours of a client's
Right.
time on something that could have probably been fixed in 5 minutes had I just stepped away
Mhm.
from it.
Yep. Perspective, isn't it amazing, right? Do we hug that tree or do we see the forest?
Yeah. So and it comes back to, the things that we've been taught,
Hmm.
not from our parents, but from our leaders, from, other entrepreneurs. And sometimes we try to emulate them. And to me, I've never tried to be someone I'm not. It's always me, I try
Yeah.
to learn from my own lessons.
How did you learn that? Like, where did that come from?
Wow. Well, 30 years of experience doing what I do.
Fair enough, but you said
But
always, so I'm curious. It goes way back, clearly.
yeah, well, and I think because, now I'm producing content for a lot of people, producing books, when I was in high school, I was a procrastinator. I waited to the very last minute to do stuff. And what did that get me? Panic, you know?
Same.
And it was I would coast by, hey, I
Yeah.
just wrote this report and blah, 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 and turned it in. And Rob, yeah, it's junk, but I'm going to give you a C for effort. Great. I don't give a shit. Now I got to do that stuff every single day, and I can't wait to the very last day.
Right.
So as soon as someone gives me an assignment, an idea, I get it done. And I think sometimes my team members are like, "Oh, Rob, you just created someone's whole year of content. What if they don't stick around for a whole year?" Well, then it's done.
And
I
it's
don't worry
done
about it.
right.
And that's happened. And this is why I've changed some things in my business. When you become a client, you pay for the first 90 days up front. And people are like, "Well, Rob, that's a lot of money." Well, yeah. You know why it's a lot of money? Because I want you sticking around.
Right. You're going to step in. I do the same thing.
If I have you come on board and I create all this content, 90 days, a year's worth of content, and you leave in 30 days because we have this idea that Rob's going to make us billions of dollars within the first 30 days, and then I can afford to keep paying him.
You're not the magic leprechaun? Come
Yeah,
on.
that's not how it works, people. You got to build that foundation first, and sometimes it takes 90 days, sometimes it takes more.
Right.
And but they think, oh, instant gratification, instant money. It doesn't work that way. So I've learned things along the way that have helped make my business more profitable, make what I do less stressful, calmer. I get more clarity because I'm not being pushed to make sure that someone is making profit off the marketing within 15 minutes after signing up. It's just not how it works, people.
Right.
But
So many people are
and
looking for magic pill marketing.
oh, they are silver bullet, magic pill, whatever
Right.
you want to
Lottery
call it.
ticket. Right.
And I get it. We have that lottery ticket mentality. We want to win. You
And
know,
so much of society pushes us to that too,
yeah,
and sets us up for that. And then when it becomes clear that, oh wait, it takes time, effort, and or money, right? Like these are I like to tell my clients that I'm here to dust off the tracks and help you know what switches to throw, but you've got to put the coal in the engine,
right.
right?
And,
If you
and I
want this
don't.
train to move, got to do
And
the thing.
my thing is, okay, yes, maybe you've had other marketing companies, and maybe they've created a foundation, but they haven't created the right foundation.
Right.
And so when you come to me and I have to go through the whole, and people are like, "Well, Rob, I already have this foundation." Yeah, okay,
Hmm.
whatever. We got to start all over because I don't like the way they did things.
Right.
And this is why you're not making sales. And this is why I'm going to create it all over because I want to ensure that you do. And I think that's the hardest thing for entrepreneurs, companies. Well, Rob, I've already gone through 5 marketing companies. Why are
Right.
you going to be different?
So
And
I'm
so
curious about that. You were talking before about how you've been real and you're always trying to be you. And look, I went through a fight with that. I was never trying to be any specific person, but I caught myself trying to be instead of just being.
mhm.
How do you help your clients through that when they come to you and they're like, "Oh, I've done this over and over," and clearly they're trying to put on some sort of, to be better, be somebody, be whatever. How do you help them relax?
Well, the I think the biggest clients that I have that are hard to teach are lawyers because
Okay.
they go through this school for many many years.
Right.
They're taught to sit up on a pedestal, look down on their people, on their clients. And I'm like, yeah, but in order to build trust with them, you have to take off that suit. You have to take off that tie. You have to come to them as someone that they can trust, that they can relate to, that they can have a beer with.
Yeah.
And so, I'm teaching them how to make videos answering the questions that people have, being themselves. And it's really hard because deep down, a lot of these lawyers have hobbies. They have they love to ski or they love to play tennis. I want to see videos of you doing that.
Right.
I want to see videos of you being real that someone can relate to. The majority of the people that come to you aren't lawyers hiring other lawyers. They're
Right.
regular people. And I want you to make videos in a language that they can understand. Don't
Mm.
giving don't give them technical terms that only people in your industry will understand.
Yeah.
And so when they start making those shifts, it's very uncomfortable. But to the audience, they're loving it because now they can relate and
And they can feel it.
and they can feel it, and they have no problems hiring that attorney because they know that they're going to do whatever they can to win for them. But if they're in a and there are a lot of people out there, oh, Rob, a suit and tie, that makes them feel powerful. And I
Yeah.
want to hire someone that's powerful. Really?
Yeah, I remember you sharing that. It flashed a particular memory into my head of when I was sitting in my office, which was in my bedroom at my old apartment with my kid, and I turned around like a client called me or something, and we did a quick video call. My kid just happened to be in the room, and I got done, and she said, "Oh, so that was presentation voice." And she meant it like innocently. Like there was no malice behind that or even criticism, but it struck me to my soul. I was like, I was a different person
Mhm.
talking there than I was otherwise. And since then I've had this drive that whether we're talking before we record, after we record, whether I'm on a webinar, it doesn't matter. I'm committed to being who I am.
Well, one of the things that I think rubs me the wrong way a little bit on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and it's especially on LinkedIn. I don't know why I don't see it anywhere else, but on LinkedIn, you will have marketers talk down to their audience. They will
Oh,
insult their audience. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm sarcastic,
right.
but that's who I am. But I don't demean my audience.
Right.
I might poke fun at a situation.
Yep.
I might share a story about a scammer and how I sarcastically, got them off the phone.
Yep.
But I don't curse. I don't demean. I don't do it. And I'm looking at these people and I'm thinking, how are you making sales? Really, honestly. And then I'll look at their offer and they're
Then you realize they're not.
they're selling stuff for $19,
Right.
$27. I'm like, here I am selling thousands of dollars
Yeah.
worth of coaching, and you're having a problem selling $19 because you're cursing at people. You're
Right.
demeaning. You're talking down.
I think it's what we said earlier, right? That always comes from ego, and ego always comes from insecurity. So they're literally doing that out of their own insecurity. And I say that as a guy who I've never done it quite that way, but I understand it and I've kind of gone through those pieces, but it drives me bonkers. How do you talk down to people? How do you condescend to people? How do you like when I would take over a team? I think the last three teams that I took over in my corporate career, I would stand in front of them and I would ask them, I would say, what's my job description? And they'd point because I happen to have the document there, right?
Mhm,
They'd point to that and I'd say, no, my job description is one line to do everything I can to help you win.
mhm,
This, this is for somebody in an office. Like it's do whatever I can to help you win because the rest will take care of itself. And then the second thing I told them then is I said, look, we're all people, right? And we're all equal and amazing, and everybody here, we are stronger as a team. And I am not better than anybody here. We all have different roles and different responsibilities, but that's it.
mhm.
That doesn't change the value of the human. And I wish more people connected with that because once you do, it changes
Mhm.
so much.
Yeah, and I'm not a big proponent of the whole DEI,
Hmm.
because for me it was always treat people the way I want to be treated. Bottom line, there is no other thing. But now you got all these people screaming, I want more rights because I do this or I'm that. And I'm like, look, people, I don't think we need a program that gets everybody else to say, hey, yeah, you need more. I think it's just treat people the way you want to be treated. But,
So I think broadly I would agree. I do, and I do think that the whole thing went way too far.
I, I,
I
I,
I've
and
spent
I,
enough time studying it to know to believe. I won't
right.
say no, but I'll say I believe that there are situations where people have been pretty heavily disadvantaged or have, and but I think how we respond to that and how we deal with that, I would do differently than how it's been done.
Yeah.
But I do think there's an importance to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I can see the situations. Some situations will arise. And I think there are companies out there that have no clue how to even treat their employees.
I agree.
Maybe
And
they
I
shouldn't even
also
have
agree with what
employees.
you said. If everybody did what we're talking about, the rest would largely take care of itself.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of in my observation, a lot of the DEI response was the fact that most people weren't doing the
Right.
things that we talk about. And so it's like, how do we make it better? And often the wrong way was chosen in my observation, sometimes the right way, but it was an attempt to fix a symptom because we couldn't fix the problem.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the overarching situation is that we don't know how to fix a problem. So we create new solutions that sometimes have no bearing on the first problem to begin
Right.
with.
I agree with that.
You know,
And we see that in a lot of different things, right? Then and that what does that lead to? This visceral attacking of everything and a greater division rather than a greater connection. All of the things that and then society spins it up and the way that our social media is now algorithmically set, all of those challenges get enhanced. Why? Because they get views.
yeah. Well, social media was created to bring people together. The problem is over the years, it's become trigger media, and that's all it does is it tries
Right.
to split us apart.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, but you know, I think COVID was the great reset when it comes to leadership. You know, companies are starting to realize that, you know, yes, people need to come to the office, or maybe they do have programs where they, you know, stay at home.
Hmm.
But the accountability needs to be there that you can connect with these people and say, hey, look, hey, you know, hey, Rob, how's it going? Is there anything I can help you with?
Yes.
I know you're at home. I know that you might have kids, grandkids, whatever. How can I help you be more productive? They don't do that.
I love that. And you're right. I've worked remotely for 20-ish years now. And what I will say is sometimes I've done really well, sometimes I haven't. The times I've done the best is when I have the greatest connection.
Hmm.
But when it's like a set it and forget it for the company,
Right.
oh, you work from home, bye. I
Yeah.
don't need to engage with you anymore. I don't need to check in with you. I don't need to help you. I don't need to know what's going on in your world. Then you miss it. When you actually demonstrate care about the person and the connection increases, it is shocking the level of productivity change.
Yeah. Well, the I had a client that wanted daily Zoom meetings, and I was like, am I
Oof.
billing you for this extra time?
Oof. I hope so.
And they're like, oh no, this is required. I'm like, it's not required by me. I'm an independent contractor. I'm your marketer. I'm trying to explain to him, and he says, you're part of the team.
Mm,
We need you on these calls every day. I'm like, it's like I don't want the calls. I'm like, this could have been an email. Next day, again, this could have been an email.
yeah. Oh, I hate that.
And finally, I said, you know what? All these Zoom meetings that you're wasting my time could have all been an email. Send me the damn email
Yeah.
after the fact.
And did they change?
Uh, they no, they didn't. They said we
I've been there too.
if you're not gonna cooperate, we're not gonna have you be helping us anymore. I'm like,
Uh,
that's fine. I
Fine.
just
Peace
saved
out.
myself some sanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very late in my corporate career that I finally understood meetings because I was the guy that I had so many meetings that could have been emails, right?
Yeah.
I finally understood meetings are for two things, decisions and development. And that if I'm going to have a meeting, I'm going to, before I have the meeting, assess will we leave better than we got there? And will it be better than the opportunity cost? And if it isn't, I'll cancel the meeting. And
Well,
I had a lot fewer meetings, I'll tell
yeah.
you that.
And I think tracking programs, management tracking programs like Asana and Monday and all these other ones, I think they're the biggest demotivator
Oh,
of
yeah.
workers because now, you know, they're not only do they have to do the work, input into the system that they did the work, instruct somebody on how to do the next step, and then your phone's getting pinged to death because of all these notifications from
Yeah.
everybody else in the group. And I told all my clients, I said, look, if you're going to inject me into this thing, I'm going to charge you an extra $2,000 a month. Nobody took me up on the offer,
Yeah,
so
strangely
they include
enough.
me now.
Yeah, I look at things like that and I also say that the need for those things is an indicator either that you have a bad relationship or you have no idea how to hire,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I don't, here's my problem. I want you to get the work done,
Right,
but I don't want to be told about it every 15 minutes.
right.
I don't care what you're doing. I don't just get the work done.
Right.
And the thing
Here,
is that when you're not being bugged every day,
yeah.
you're going to get that work done quicker.
Amazing how that works, isn't it?
Mm,
Like here's the project. Here's what success looks like. Get it done. And then you either get it done or you either get it done, you ask for help, or you don't get it done. There, it's
mm.
not a lot of options.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you want to get paid, get it done quicker,
Yeah.
and so I think that's what comes back down to me is, you know, clients are paying me not for how long it takes, but for the results that I'm going to get to them quicker. So if I get the
Yeah.
project done, you know, in 3 days, maybe they give me 3 weeks. Now I'm starting to make them money faster.
Right, exactly. There's a quote that I like from, man, it's from the book Good to Great from a long time ago, old school book, right? That they're talking about motivation. And he said, you don't motivate people, you hire motivated people.
Hmm.
And I think you can inspire people. That's great. Inspire them to more. But if I've got to motivate people, then I'm missing it. And I feel like that whole checking in philosophy that you're talking about, like that the people are doing with all these, that's like desperately trying to motivate people who weren't motivated. So I might look and go, where did I miss it? Right. Because I missed it somewhere. And I find that the teams that work for me and my company now, I'm able to have remarkably complete trust in what they're doing.
Hmm.
And I know that now we've set that up, we set expectations and we have clarity, but I don't, I'm the furthest from micromanaging them, and yet we're remarkably efficient and I love it.
Yeah. I think when you take micromanaging out of the equation, people learn how to manage themselves and they get the job done quicker.
Right. It's like people come to you and say, I have a problem. I'm like, so do I want to trade. Right. Like, but you cause them to think. It's not that I'm being dismissive of them because I don't want to be dismissive of anyone, but it's more of like if it made it to my desk, it's probably a pretty big problem. Do you really want to trade? Like how did you handle it? What would you recommend? And then they pause and think, oh yeah, this is what I'd recommend. Great, go do that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like it changes the empowerment changes agency. I don't think I usually say it quite that way, but I think when you give people clarity and a version of empowerment, I think they start to recognize that they have agency. So
Well,
many people
yeah.
abdicate their agency. And we do
One
that
of
in life too, right? Like the world is happening to me, which I think is such BS.
one of the books I wrote is all about, Walt Disney World, but the cast members have been empowered to help people.
Right.
When you go into Disney and you have whatever question you have, whether it's, on the mark, oddball, whatever, every cast member is empowered to not only answer the question, but find a solution. And if they don't know it, they will find someone to come and help you out. You go to in any grocery store now, people that they got headphones on, they don't want to be bothered. You try to ask them a question, they have no idea where stuff
Right.
is. I'm thinking, did you just start working today? You know, but that's the problem. The leaders aren't empowering the people that should be out there in the front. You know,
Right. I mean, that comes from insecurity in a lot of cases. What do most weak leaders want? To be necessary. I
Mhm.
say one of the strongest signs of a great leader is that they work hard to be helpful but unnecessary. And I finally I had to set my ego aside because I wanted, you want to be needed, you want to be all these things as you're learning. And then I realized the greatest vision of success is if I can walk away and it does incredibly well, and then I go and I can help, I can support it, I can amplify it, but it does really well when I'm not there. That's good. And that's true whether it's a business, a family, whatever it might be. Like I'm integrated into my family. I care about my family, but if I'm going to leave my family, I want them to be able to succeed.
Yeah, yeah, and And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to think about things that are beyond the scope of today.
Hmm.
I wrote a book called Legacy, and it's not always about, leaving money behind. Usually you leave knowledge. But in the case of a leader, you know, the legacy of that leader, like Mr. John Hurt, yes, he owned the grocery store. He was very well liked in the community. He passed away a few years ago, but people are still out there telling his story, you know? And so
Yeah.
I want people eventually, when I'm gone, hey, let's talk about Rob.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what he did. Let's talk. And I think entrepreneurs don't think that way. They think in the now. Yeah, look, every entrepreneur I know should be a natural born leader. They're not always, you know, but they should learn the skills of being a leader.
Right.
It's
They
going to
don't
help.
embrace it. Because I would argue everyone is a leader. The only choice is whether they're going to be good at it.
Yeah.
If leadership is influence, we're all it, right? I want to go get dinner somewhere. I better be a leader, right? I'm curious. You brought up legacy. It's a passion topic of mine. And a question I like to ask is you said you want people to think about you, to talk about you. Say, hey, let's talk about Rob. What do you want them to say? If they say, man, Rob was this, or when I think of Rob, I think this. What do you want them to think?
Rob was sarcastic. And here's the thing about that. And a lot of my audience members have heard this story before. When I first started getting on social media, and this was going back 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
I walked on eggshells. I didn't want to piss anybody off.
You were
I
vanilla
didn't want to
roadkill.
trigger them.
Yeah.
I suppressed my sarcasm. And I'm thinking, this isn't getting me anywhere. But the moment I started letting that sarcasm out, letting people experience the fun nature of who I am, and then the no bullshit approach that I take with life and business, I started getting more customers. I started getting more people that embraced who I was.
Right.
And the whole Rob versus series is all about my sarcasm. And a lot of my newer books have sarcasm in it. It's not full-blown sarcasm. It's a lot of mix with business and my life lessons, and which I call Robisms,
Right.
so people can get the idea. But it's that approach that people can say, look, Rob did things his way. He was very sarcastic. And I think, when you look back in business, people will say, well, you know what? He attracted the people that liked who he was.
Mm.
And it's hard to tell people you got to be yourself because they're like, I don't know how to be myself.
Right.
I don't know who myself is,
Yep. I hear that all the time when I have that conversation.
and so you have to dive deep into getting to know people. Are they very stoic? Are they sarcastic? Are they well-meaning? Or, do they have an evil side? Are they, Lord Voldemort and you just don't know it,
Right.
So there are people out there that, have a different view on life than I do. That's
Mm.
okay, you know, but
But they're
I
not your people.
but it goes back to I treat people the way I want them to treat me.
Hmm.
Um, and so I have customers all over the globe, all different, backgrounds. Some, don't have a religion like I do. Some don't do this, some don't do that. It's just if they like sarcasm, they're gonna be, in my tribe.
I love that that's the through line. That's beautiful.
So it's you have to find a common ground in what you
Yeah.
do and what you want your clients to come out of the conversation and learn about you. So, we have a few more minutes. Let's talk about you. Why did you become who you are? I mean, not everybody wants to be a strategic momentum coach. Um, I became a marketer because I wanted to help people. Um, but I'm not for everyone.
Yeah, I it's really what I initially did, which is I left my 30-year corporate career because I was done. I wanted to do what I thought was morally and ethically right. I wanted to help people. I'd learned a lot of skills, and I was like, cool, I figured this out. I guess I'm going to go do the thing. And that was great. And I built things, started speaking around the world, all that. I would say though that what has made me who I am today, especially when I labeled myself a calm and clarity coach, it happened when I had those heart attacks, right? So I had 4 heart attacks in one year, and I am incredibly grateful to be here. It's so much of a crazier story than even that sentence would tell you, because the first one I had was within a week and a half of the exact age my mother had hers, that we later learned was the same heart attack because I got a genetic curve in an artery from her,
Hmm.
and she passed away from it and I didn't. And I was supposed to be in Manila, but because of the pandemic, it had canceled the speaking engagement. And I was 2 minutes from a hospital that saved my life. Like, whole craziness, right? The first one, I go through and I did all the, I'd said goodbye to my kid. I did all the transformational stuff that you do that's powerful. I don't mean to skip over it, but more to shorten it. And I would say, okay, maybe I kind of started to change, but not really. The second one happened 3 months later, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? And they said, oh, you have this curve in your artery. I'm like, all right, well, now that we know that, I'm going to be fine. The third one, 3 months later, all in the same artery, right? And I'm like, I'm starting to go, wait a minute, there's something I probably need to hear here. And then the fourth one, and my capacity was just dramatically reduced. My ability to I was a martial artist and I still identify as martial artist, but I was a martial artist for 10 straight years, right? I did all of these things. I was super active going on, and suddenly I had to just lay in bed. I'd do a call like this. I'd have to go lay down for 3 hours.
Hmm.
And that, you want to talk about changing your perspective on, like, I could do 5% as much as I was doing before. So what I got very upset. And what I learned over the next several months is that it slowed me down enough to see people differently. It slowed me enough down to recognize that I like how to legitimately be empathetic and empathic and all the pieces around that. And finally saw the pattern. My number one skill in the entire world is synthesis. It is, I can look at 100 things, pull a piece from each one of them and make something better than them, no matter how good they were before. And because of that, I refine things. You asked me a question 10 years ago, it would have taken me an hour to answer. And now I might have a sentence that
Hmm.
does the same thing. I finally saw it. Calm, clarity, and focus in that order is the only path to really to momentum, whether it's in life or business, right? And so I was able to rebrand because I asked all my clients, "What do you do? What do I do for you?" Instead of me saying what I did for them, I said, "What have I done for you? What?" And they said, "Oh, you help us become calm.
Hmm.
You help us get clear on the next steps." I'm like, "Oh, maybe I'm a calm and clarity coach." And that's really where that came out of, was the whole shift from me and then asking them.
And see, that's your origin story. That's how you're born,
That's
basically.
right. That's right. It's like, feels like it's like my ninth birth, but I'm grateful for it because it also showed me that when you lose something big that you could mourn and all of that, you're always there's always a balance. You're always gaining something else. And I
Hmm.
gained perspective and connection and an ability to see and reach other people that I never would have had.
Yeah. So where do people find you? Where do they go?
So I think Leaders Must Lead on YouTube is a good place. That's where our Calm and Clarity Conversations podcast is season 2 coming very soon. the, Also, I would say LinkedIn or Facebook under Dan McPherson, my name. I love to connect, and I love to hear people's stories and learn about their world. So that's where you can find me and what I do.
Well, that's awesome. So everybody, reach out to Dan, and you know what? We'll see you guys on the next episode. Adios.
Thank you.